Urban Meyer was on Fox Sports One's college football coverage this weekend, and he was speaking. I believe they were talking about Michigan, if I had to guess, but it was kind of generic, right? He's talking about, look, in his experience as a college head coach, what can go wrong to where you find yourself in the position of an LSU or a Michigan or a Penn State in terms of things just completely falling apart at the seams. And it's a longer clip, it's about 2 minutes, but trust me when I say it's worth it. Here is Urban Meyer on what can go so wrong on the college football level.
To go do. Well, so many of us are excuse makers. I mean, that's part of who we are, and it shouldn't be that way. When you see a team struggle, the first thing the fans and the media blame are the players, or they blame the coaches. It's never more evident in the NFL. I always laugh every week when I'll hear someone say, well, they got bad players in the NFL, some team that always struggles. I'm thinking, wait a minute. Think about what you just said. There's not a bad player in the NFL. They're NFL players. Same with the coach. You can't say, well, he's a bad coach. Now, maybe they're not coaching well, or maybe the player's not playing well, but that's where I always say, lift under the hood. Never make excuses. When I was a coach, I would never let one of my coaches say he's a bad player. I'd warn them and say that again, you probably have to leave, because that's just, you're making excuses. Now, dig deep and find out why. Every time I've had a team struggle, every time it's fallen in one of three categories. Number one, there's some trust issue. The players don't trust the coach don't trust the players, or awful when the players don't trust each other. Number two, you really think about it, it's called a dysfunctional work environment, Reggie, and that's that, where the expectations are very high, but we don't work hard.
I've been there before, Coach.
And the coach has to be real clear with his team. Say, wait a minute, that's going to lead to frustration, anger, disappointment, because we want to win a championship. I got news, guys. We're not working hard. So stop with the expectations. If your work ethic must exceed or equate your expectations, that's a good environment. And the last one is real obvious. You got a selfish team, man. You got problems on your team. Football is an unselfish sport. That means you got to do the nasty. That means I'm a running back. I got to go protect for my quarterback.
Yeah.
That you don't always get to carry the ball. Sometimes you have to run down a kickoff 22 miles an hour and throw yourself into someone coming 15 miles an hour the other way. That's not fun. Why would you do that? Because you love your team and your teammates. So when you hear LSU, Penn State, Wolverines struggling, stop with the bad players. I get sick of hearing that. It's not the players. I don't think it's the coaches. But there's something wrong. Lift the hood, find out one of those.
Somebody's kitty's hungry. You ever filmed that video? God, cats are so annoying when they're hungry. God, the cat threw me off. Okay, no, there's a lot to unpack there. Okay, Urban Meyer. If that didn't kind of give you goosebumps in terms of institutional knowledge, in terms of coming from someone who has proven that he can win on every level, no matter where he's at, right? Whether it's bringing Utah to the Sugar Bowl and beating Alabama, or winning national championships at Florida, or a national championship at Ohio State. That is a man who's a lifer, and he's seen it from all angles. And so he knows what can go so wrong, and it feels so relevant and appropriate for LSU. First off, that he's a bad player excuse. I'm really glad that he pointed out, because in my opinion, there's way too much of that going on at LSU behind closed doors. When you ask people what's wrong, a lot of, oh, well, he's not good enough, or he's not good, he's this or that. It's your job as a coach to make the most out of what you have, right? Like it's your job, regardless of where your talent level may be, to raise that talent, to mitigate the weaknesses within your roster, to customize your scheme in order to do so. What do bad coaches do? They say, screw it, I'm running my scheme regardless, and they just try to plug in and play everybody no matter whether they fit or not. What does that then lead to? Instead of mitigating the situation, you exacerbate it. You make it worse. And that's exactly what's going on at LSU right now. You have a scheme that is not customized to players. You have a scheme that is just being run. I mean, do you need to look further than the Mississippi State game? Or I'm just going to run my defense no matter what. And look at what happened. The worst offense in the SEC torched you for 600 yards because you weren't willing to adapt to what the situation at hand called for. And if you can't adapt in the most singularly obvious game planning standpoint that I can think of, when you talk about how to stop the air raid attack, rush 3, drop 8, Chris Peterson. We keep saying it time that he laid it all on tape. In 2 games against Washington State, they threw for 500 yards, 5 picks, no touchdowns. Why? Because 80% of the time, Chris Peterson rushed 3 and dropped 8. LSU refused to do so. They were going to run their system no matter what. Look at what happened. Oh, but it's the bad players. No, that's bullcrap. That's my point. Too much of the bad player excuse going on at LSU. I get the leadership void. The talent is still better than the results because you are exacerbating the issue if you're the staff. And you say, okay, well, how's that coming about? The bad player excuse? But I really think the top 2 out of the 3 things that Urban Meyer alluded to there apply. Trust issues and dysfunctional work environment. The selfishness, I'm not really seeing as much on the field. I think this is a team that I think as teammates, they want to play for each other. I think they enjoy each other. I don't know that I'm seeing a ton of selfishness. I think they've been pretty selfless. But in terms of trust issues, I mean, does anybody disagree that it feels like this LSU team has definite trust issues with this coaching staff? I mean, do you need to look at the body language on the sideline when Bo Pelini's yelling at them and guys are looking all over the place disinterested? Or the fact that nobody on defense knows what defense they're supposed to run or what to do if a man goes in motion across the field? Again, you go in motion and you basically lob a grenade into the LSU defense and their brain explodes trying to figure out what their responsibilities are now that things have changed. So, yeah, it looks like there's a lack of trust within the actual scheme, but it looks like, in my opinion, there's a more core disconnect of trust, which is the ultimate bad sign, which is like, as a player, the premier thing you want in your relationship with a coach is that, can I trust you that if I listen to you, I will be put in my best position to succeed? Even if I think it's wrong, even if I think it's crazy, do I have that trust in you that I will follow your instructions because you are putting me in the best position to succeed? There is no way that LSU has that trust with its coaches right now. And the results on the field would speak that. The second part, dysfunctional work environment. Urban Meyer talks about how your work ethic must exceed or equate expectations. And right now, I don't know that you're seeing that out of LSU. And I think a lot of that is normal. You win a national championship, and it becomes very hard to keep that motivation up, that 24/7 grind, right? And then you combine something like the pandemic where it kind of leads you into a naturally more relaxed offseason. I mean, you had the 2019 team up there at 10 a.m. on Saturdays doing full team practices, which is unheard of, but it was that unprecedented work ethic and commitment that led to the results. The coaching staff staying extra time, staying late. What did the coaching staff do during this weekend in which a game was canceled? They were off for 3 days. And look, I believe that coaches do have a bit of a fetish for overworking. Like, I think they kind of get off to being like, oh man, I'm in at 5 a.m. and gone by 11 p.m. every day. And they don't tell you the secret. So, like, I think they love that to begin with, right? And so I think that is overblown. And eventually there's diminishing returns where you can stay there all day and it doesn't mean anything. But I also think it's a bad look for the coaching staff to be off through the weekend, in which it wasn't like a bye week in which you have things planned ahead of time. It was a last-second cancellation, and you are in the midst of a crisis. That is time to try to get things fixed, to address the core issues, and instead they're not there. So are you really putting in the work ethic of a defending national champion? More importantly, are you putting in the work ethic that got you there in the first place? And I think if people are being fully objective and honest with themselves inside that building, I don't think they would say that they are. And so while the selfishness doesn't come into play, I think Urban Meyer hits on 2 of the core problems with this 2020 LSU team, which is trust issues, both between the coaches and the players, but probably even inter-player trust issues as well, and then dysfunctional work environment. And I mean, stuff like this USA Today article is just spice to the pot and making it feel worse. These are hard problems to fix. It's not easy. Like where you talk about trust is built over time. It goes back to David Griffin and Stan Van Gundy talking about culture in their opening press conference. They both believe that culture is something that is built through actions, one action at a time, one day at a time. You cannot create it overnight. But like reputation, it's incredibly easy to tear down. And it looked like LSU had a really solid culture built, and then an earthquake came through, and now that culture is starting to show some weakness, and they have to decide whether they're going to crumble or whether they're going to fortify this thing. And it's up to them. It's a great part about sports. Ultimately, the path to your redemption relies within your hands. So we'll see if they can get it done. When we get back here on Off the Bench, we got Jeff Duncan coming up. He, of course, writes for The Athletic, does incredible work. I want to pick his brain about the New Orleans Saints and trying to bridge this breezeless gap. Stick around here on Off the Bench, 104.5 with the 94.7 ESPN.
OTB, OT.